On this channel, I attempt to reveal the true magic of the left-hand path, not only from an occultic perspective, but a psychological one as well. A deep understanding of what we practice is important, otherwise one can get mired in nonsense and bullshit. Why does it work? How does it work? And why is it beneficial? Are a few of the questions I try to answer. And while on the path, there are multiple maps one can utilize to reach that goal of sinister illumination. As I've stated in more than one video, alchemy is that esoteric art of changing something of little value like lead into something of great value like gold. But guess what? No one has ever been able to do that, change lead into gold. So why is this topic of alchemy relevant if it's impossible, you may ask? It's all about symbolism. The brilliant Carl Jung noticed that alchemical symbols and systems corresponded to the anatomy of the subconscious. Like the chakras or the tree of life, this ancient art symbolically described the journey one must take toward embodying one's own intrinsic wholeness, that which is called individuation. Understand that no matter how hard we try, the psyche cannot be understood conceptually, but only through images or symbols. That's what our dreams are. Symbolic imagery from our subconscious. And Jung thought that the alchemical operations were real. This reality, though, was not physical but psychological. But then again, isn't everything psychological? Because without consciousness, without a psyche, you're not making this journey through existence. We in the sect of the Horn God utilize basic alchemical terms when describing the journey the initiate takes as he or she progresses through the four lower main orders. Each order has its symbolic element. And when the initiate has passed those lower orders, they become a Cenobite. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't that from Hellraiser? Cenobite? Trust me, Clive Barker didn't make up the word, and it very much fits what these advanced members have become. Now, the Cenobite utilizes the accumulated knowledge acquired in the lower orders to bring about the quintessence, or fifth element, ether. This process is done in the order of Shiva, the highest of the orders, one that one must reach to obtain the status of Hyperborean. But most people are not willing to face what is lying dormant in their subconscious. That shit's scary, and for many, whether they realize it or not, nothing is more frightful. And if you don't think you're able to face the reality of that inner self, then the Order of Shiva may not be for you, because that's where the great work, or the transmutation, the true magic of the sect takes place. But in order for it to work, you have to look at yourself like a vessel. And the contents of your psyche, all the horrors and ugliness, is the means and object of transformation. It's like lead, of little value, but this sinister process cannot be reduced to simple axioms. It is the multi-level unification of microcosm and macrocosm. You are bridging the abyss between the ego and the subconscious by descending into darkness to meet and reconcile with your demon. This process, this stage, is synonymous with the Negretto, or the blackening phase of alchemy, which is symbolically coming to terms with the darker aspects of the self. What you have done is accepted the contents of your unconscious, even those things that you would normally avoid, in order to discover the divine in you, that divine beast that must be risen. And this brings us to Lilith. Lilith, that goddess made into a demoness, is one form of that beast that must be restored to her divine status, whether you're male or female. In the realms of comparative mythology, Lilith is synonymous with the kundalini and Shakti, the divine female energy and consort of Shiva. Kundalini is the serpent coiled at the base of the spine, just as the serpent was coiled around the tree of the knowledge of sex and death. The image of the snake is, of course, well known in India. The serpent is at the basis of a whole philosophical system of Tantra. It is Kundalini, the Kundalini serpent. Through this process, Lilith becomes one with the first chakra, the root chakra, which is situated at the base of the spine. She's represented by the red mandala, root support, the element of fire. The first chakra is the foundation of the physical body. She keeps it grounded. This chakra is the base of the 6 other chakras. In some forms of yoga, one meditates to awaken the Kundalini so that it will rise up through his or her body. The energy travels upward in a symbolic pathway parallel to the spinal column. And as it rises, the Kundalini activates the chakras in succession. The objective is to raise the Kundalini to the crown chakra, where it unites with Shiva, the male polarity, the horn god in all his manifestations. Jung saw meaning in the motion of the unconscious through Kundalini awakening. The serpent aspect is not eliminated or repressed here on the left-hand path as it is on the right. This is one with the alchemical processes of transmutation of the base self into something precious. The base you is being elevated to a deified status, self-deification. It is the demon, the divine beast, becoming a god. But how does this come about? First, for this process to work, you as a sinisteress should have already divorced yourself from herd mentality and instead have become an observer of the status quo. This is due to the fact that your comfort zone has become too constrictive, like an animal outgrowing its cage. And thus you've broken free and have become the monster at the windows of night. But if you haven't already done that, then you're not ready for this. The truth is, only a few brave souls will venture beyond the walls of their self-imposed prison. If you've spent a lifetime suppressing yourself, then you're a stranger to yourself. I'm going to repeat that. If you've spent a lifetime suppressing yourself, then you're a stranger to yourself. And that alienation from oneself can lead to a deep depression. You may try to numb it in a variety of ways, but you can't escape from yourself. Through tantric alchemical processes in the order of Shiva, you will come face to face with the self, the shadow self. Deal with it. Deal with it in its many complexities and learn to integrate it into your life. The world can be terrible, inexplicable, and dangerous, yet you must never surrender to pessimism by turning your back on it. Instead, in the order, you will learn to transmute the subjective, the micro-arcana, and become the Hyperborean, free from social constraints, attitudes, restrictive dogmas, with a strong will to power in its rational utilization. You can then accept the world with all its highs and lows, mysteries and ambiguities. This is because you've broken out of the cage of ignorant bliss. You will be drawn to your processes, innovations, dreams, and higher ideals, and feel no guilt when you become more compulsive and proactive. And this is very important. You must make sure God is dead. What do I mean by this? Well, what did Nietzsche mean by it when he said God is dead? For one, it's not a victorious declaration about the demise of a tyrant, it's a warning. What Nietzsche is stating is that Christianity and the morals that come with it were no longer in the hearts and minds of his generation of modern men. God was symbolically murdered by an indifference that was directly related to a cultural shift away from faith and toward a new rationalism brought on by the Enlightenment, the age of Lucifer. For those strong enough to deal with it, the death of God can be a good thing, but for most, not so much. The masses need him, or a petty substitute. You, though, you have to be strong enough to handle the death of God and murder him if you have to. This is if you truly want to be your own God. But when you've reached that final stage of development, the game isn't over. There's no moment where henceforth eternal bliss has become bestowed upon you. You must work to stay in the position you've reached. There's always internal and external forces working to usurp your status. Even the ancient gods understood this. Odin is a perfect example. Though he was already a god, he was still willing to struggle and search and even sacrifice himself to acquire and retain the ultimate knowledge, to become more than who he was. So my friends, if you're on this path and you're not on a journey of self-exploration and knowledge, then what the fuck are you doing? Just being a rebel? The left-hand path is a road wrought with peril, and through syncretism and comparative mythology, you can find corresponding maps that reveal the shortcuts through that hellish maze that is the inner workings of your psyche, leading you to that which you seek.